You can make a bargain with silence if you know the price. My name is Daniel. Once I was a journalist. Now I'm just a man who doesn't sleep. After the accident, my head has never been quiet. A thin ringing, like a wire pulled too tight, lives in my ears. The assignment came from a small non-profit, the Heart to Hear Foundation. They had rented an abandoned estate outside Brattleboro, Vermont. They called it the House of Silence. Women lived there, women who refused to speak. Not a cult, not a vow, not religion, just treatment, they claimed. Tires humming on wet asphalt, pines on both sides. Phone signal gone. The house looked like something from a faded photo. Brick walls, shuttered windows, a roof sagging under years of neglect. The grass in the yard grew in patches, bare soil showing through like scars. Mary met me at the gate. Mid-40s, pale face, steady gray eyes. She spoke softly, as if words were meant to vanish the moment they left her mouth. One rule, she said. After 9 p.m., no words. Not one. I laughed. Not even good night? Her eyes didn't change. Not even that. Above the entry door hung a sign, carved in wood. Here, silence is the only witness. I opened my notebook, and for the first time in years I didn't want to write. Mary guided me through the house. Floorboards sagged underfoot, rugs worn thin, wallpaper peeling in gray curls. Ordinary. And yet, the silence was different. Not the hush of a cabin, not the reverence of a library. This silence had weight. It pressed on the chest like stone. Most of them come here after trauma, Mary whispered. Violence, loss, war, or because words turned toxic. I asked, and they don't talk at all? She nodded. Some stop for months, some forever. The hallway was lined with old photographs. Women sat in circles, their mouths sealed shut, eyes lowered. Not posed portraits. They looked more like mugshots of grief. I wanted to ask if this was therapy, but Mary stopped at a door and raised a finger to her lips. Inside sat 3 women. One traced lines across a Bible. Another clutched a doll with empty sockets. The third stared out the window. None of them moved. None acknowledged me. And then I saw the far corner. No window, no lamp. And yet the air there was trembling, like someone invisible was breathing, slow and steady. Mary leaned close. The most important rule, she whispered, is silence after 9. Why? I asked. Her look froze me. Because that's when they answer. And I understood. Silence here wasn't empty. It belonged to someone else. At night, the house sank into silence, as if smothered under a heavy blanket. The hall lights blinked out, too soon. shadows spreading like stains. The women moved slower, softer, their steps no longer their own. I walked the corridor, doors cracked open, narrow beds inside. One woman scribbled in a notebook, another combed her hair with slow, mechanical strokes. A third sat still, staring at the wall. Not one lifted her head, not one acknowledged me. And yet, my skin crawled. I was being watched. In the lounge, an old clock without hands clicked. Once, twice, 3 times. I turned. The clock face was empty, but the sound was real. At the far end of the hall, a bulb flared, then died. For a split second I saw a silhouette, small, childlike, standing with its face pressed to the wall. I blinked, gone. In my room, I lay on the cot. Rain struck the glass. Branches scraped the window. I closed my eyes, and then Daniel. At first I thought it was the ringing in my ears, but no. The sound was thick, damp, like breath against my skin. I snapped my eyes open. In the corner crouched something. Knees pulled to chest, arms wrapped around them. Head bowed, hair hanging forward. The cot groaned beside me as if weight pressed down. I didn't move. I blinked. The corner was empty, but the whisper remained. Now it spoke in my voice. Morning came gray, heavy with fog. Mary gestured me toward the garden. On a wet bench sat a young woman, hood pulled over her head, hands hidden deep in her sleeves. "This is Lauren," Mary whispered. 3 months here. Not a word. I sat beside her, leaving space between us. She didn't look at me. Her eyes fixed on a dead apple tree, branches black and brittle. I pulled out my notebook, wrote, "Why are you here?" Held the page out. She read it, returned the notebook blank, then raised her hand, drew a slow circle in the air. House, touched her throat, and made a motion like tears flowing inward, not out. Cold swept through me, not from the air, from understanding. It wasn't that speaking hurt her throat. It hurt deeper. I forced a smile. Wrote, "When you're silent, do your thoughts get louder?" She nodded once, then looked at me, eyes steady, unreadable, as if she already knew the answer. And that's when the ringing in my ears changed. It stretched, bent, like a string pulled tight, plucked by invisible fingers. Something was trying to come through. "Daniel." I flinched. Lauren hadn't moved. Her lips were shut. She only stared, and I understood. Silence here wasn't emptiness. It was territory, and it had owners. "There are rules here," Mary said. Her voice was calm, steady, like she was speaking not to me but to the house itself. We walked the corridor, floorboards bent underfoot. On the wall hung clocks with no hands, faces blank, wood cracked. The silence pressed even harder. First, we do not heal anyone. We only give them a safe silence. Second, after 9 p.m., no words, not one, not even by accident. And third, she stopped. Silence can help, but sometimes it bites. I tried to laugh. Bites? Mary's eyes didn't change. People aren't used to hearing themselves raw. Words are masks. Silence is a mirror. Not everyone survives the reflection. We climbed the stairs. At the top, a narrow door. Mary unlocked it. Inside, a small room lined in black foam. No windows, no lamp. The air was heavy, damp, like the inside of a grave. "This is the capsule," she said. "Not punishment. A place where you hear everything. Can I try it?" 15 minutes, no more. She touched my shoulder. "And remember, if you hear something you want to repeat, don't ever." Long pause. I smiled weakly, but inside, I already knew I would. Mary shut the door. Darkness pressed down, wet and suffocating. At first, the usual, the ringing in my ears, the pounding of my heart, blood rushing in my temples. Minutes crawled by. Silence thickened. Not empty, viscous. It climbed higher, ankles, knees, chest. I breathed, and the walls seemed to breathe with me. A door slammed far below, muffled, like under snow. I froze, and then I heard it. "Daniel." Not a stranger's voice, my own, speaking words I had never thought. "Say it." "Let me out." I pressed palms to my ears. Pointless. The whisper wasn't outside. It pulsed from inside, beneath my ribs. Something shifted in the corner. I couldn't see, but I knew. Someone crouched there, knees pulled up, arms wrapped around them, mirroring me. I raised a hand. It raised a hand. I tilted my head. It tilted deeper. When my lips parted, its mouth opened wider, far too wide, unnatural. "Daniel, give me your voice." My tongue ached to move. I bit down until I tasted blood, and suddenly the pressure vanished. The dark released me, empty, alone. But I knew the truth. It wasn't my strength that saved me. It had only let me go. By the third day, the house no longer felt foreign. I had learned to walk softly, to eat with gestures, to laugh with my eyes. In the garden, we worked in silence. Some cleared wet leaves from the paths. Others washed the windows, streaked with age. Lauren sat on a bench, folding her hands as if shaping paper boats out of air. Around noon, an older woman, Evelyn, approached. She pointed at my notebook. I handed it to her. She wrote, "When was the last time you stayed silent for a whole day?" I thought about it. Never. She nodded, smiling with the weary expression of someone who already knows the answer. Somewhere, a crow cawed, and for an instant I swore the walls of the house trembled like skin in the wind. That evening Mary gathered us. "Tonight we go into regimen." "What does that mean?" I asked. "We shut the electricity. Completely." "Why?" "To hear what remains." She looked at me longer than she should have. "Your silence isn't like theirs." "Because of the ringing in my ears?" "No, because of the need to speak." "Do not repeat." Her lips didn't move, and I wasn't sure she had spoken at all. At 9 p.m., the house died. The power cut in a single breath. No lights, no hum. Even the pipes seemed to stop. At first it was almost funny. Someone tripped in the hall. Someone else cursed under their breath. I even smiled, but the humor drained quickly. The dark was too thick. Every step exploded in my ears, like stomping on a drum. Even my breath felt borrowed. I lay on the cot. Through the curtains, a smear of sickly moonlight crawled in. Branches scratched the window, dry and sharp. And then, crying. Not loud, swallowed, smothered, but unmistakably crying. Steps followed, small, steady, as if a child counted them. The handle of my door rattled. I grabbed it from the inside. On the other side, a hand pulled back. I felt it. Thin fingers, ice cold, like porcelain. I froze, breathing on the other side. Shallow, panicked. "Daniel, open." My teeth clenched. My tongue ached to answer. The door jerked once, twice, and then released. Steps faded, but something lingered. Through the crack under the door, I saw the pale smear of moonlight and a shadow, small, childlike. It didn't move. I stepped back, heart hammering, and knew the victory here was not in speaking. It was in staying silent, even when your own name is called. The next morning, Mary allowed me 10 minutes in her office. "You wanted interviews," she said. "Ask." I opened my notebook. "Why call them daughters of silence?" Mary gave a thin smile. "Because silence isn't a tool. It's not a method. It's a mother. She holds you when you're breaking." She opened a folder, photographs, notes, sparse, clinical. "Lauren lost her sister," Mary said. 5 years old, a car at the crosswalk. Lauren was there. My throat tightened. And then every word tasted false. So she stopped. Mary shut the folder. "We aren't therapists. We're wardens." Wardens of what? Of a border between those who keep silent to survive and those who fall silent because they're gone. I stared at her. The ringing in my ears dulled, as if pressed down by an invisible hand. Mary leaned closer. "You didn't come here for a story, Daniel. You came with a question. What question? Who are you trying to hear? I dropped my gaze, didn't answer, but inside, something clenched, like my own voice was sitting in the corner, waiting for me to notice. I asked for the capsule again. Mary said nothing, only raised her hand. 15 minutes. Inside, the dark clung tighter than before. The walls seemed to lean in. I sat on the floor, back to the padding, knees up. At first, the usual. Heartbeat, ringing, the faint churn of breath. Then, something else. Daniel. Say it. Just one word. The voices pressed from both sides, inside my head and outside it, through ears, through bones, through skin, scratching across the wall. Though my hands were still on my knees, I wasn't alone. Someone sat across from me. I couldn't see, but I felt it. A figure mirroring me. I raised my hand. It raised its hand. I tilted my head. It tilted further. Then its mouth opened, wider than mine, far too wide. My lips trembled. The word perched on the edge of my tongue. Any word, just to break the silence. Daniel, let me out. I bit down. Blood filled my mouth, and then it stopped. The dark released me. The weight lifted. Alone. Empty. But I knew it wasn't my strength. It was a test. And next time, I might fail. By the 5th day, the house felt almost normal. The silence no longer crushed me, it became background. And that frightened me more than anything. I went out into the garden. Autumn gnawed the trees bare, grass patchy with yellow scars. Lauren sat on the same bench, fists clenched so tightly her knuckles turned white. I sat beside her. We both stared at a dead branch swaying in the wind. I wrote in my notebook, "Do you miss words?" She read it, thought for a moment, and carefully wrote back, "I miss my voice." The cold that struck me had nothing to do with the weather. A twig cracked behind me. I turned. Nothing. At the doorway, Evelyn was watching us. Her lips didn't move, but her eyes told me enough. Be careful. Inside, women passed me in the corridor. Each carried the same small notebook pressed to her chest. Like a heartbeat. Like something they were keeping trapped. I realized then they weren't just silent because words hurt. They were silent because words could release something. And in their silence I finally heard it. The echo of a scream held shut. Leaving felt wrong. The house had already woven itself around me, and every creak of the floorboards sounded like goodbye. Mary handed me a folded slip of paper. Not a report, not thanks. Just 3 rules written in her hand. 1. Do not heal with words. 2. Do not repeat what comes from deep silence. 3. Do not be silent for silence's sake. Listen. I pocketed it. Lauren stood by the gate. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She only watched me with an expression that would never leave me. I drove away. Tires grinding on gravel. The house receded in the mirror, but the windows glowed faintly in the dark. And behind each one, I swore I saw a silhouette. The road hummed beneath the car. My phone caught signal again. The ringing in my ears didn't vanish. It changed. There was rhythm now. Breathing. Not mine. You're here. I slammed the brakes, looked back. The back seat was empty. At home, I opened my laptop, but the words I typed twisted on the screen. Letters bent, blurred, reforming into something else. Say it. Just one word. I snapped the lid shut, sat in the silence, and understood. The daughters of silence weren't just those women. I was one of them now. You cannot bargain with silence. You can only surrender and wait for it to speak in your voice.